I'm going to show you the best way to run computer games on your handheld. Are you ready? Here it is. See what I did there? The computer's on the handheld, running games. That's the joke. I'll give you some time to stop laughing before I continue. You good? No? Still laughing? Okay. Take your time. Hey there, how's it going? I'm TechDweeb, welcome. Thanks for clicking on the video today. PC games on our retro handhelds. That's like the dream that so many of us had a very short time ago. I have lots of dreams though. Most of them involve my teeth falling out, or my 4th grade teacher, or being spanked, or all of the above. But PC games on my Android doodads was a dream that I wanted to come true so bad. I knew the potential was there. I wanted nothing more than to have some sort of pocket-sized Steam Deck. Maybe not as powerful as my big boy Steam Deck, but to have something to crush my indie game backlog on whatever Android doodad I'm tinkering with. We had some early examples of how this could work, like Winlater, but it wasn't quick and easy to use. Quite the opposite. It was long and hard, like a unripe banana. Or my dip. When GameHub came along, that was good at first, and it did get better, but it's not a community project, it's not open source, and it's got limitations, and none of the solutions that we had were the real solution we needed. However, while all this was happening, an app called GameNative was quietly growing and evolving, like a tumor. The good kind of tumor. GameNative is an open source project that aims to do everything that you could ever want to do with PC games on Android, but easy and effortless. And now it basically does exactly that. You get a clean, simple, easy to use interface, simple presets and options that make it easy to get up and running, more powerful options under the hood, front-end support. You can log into Steam and Epic and GOG and Amazon games. You get all those. You get your cloud saves and your DLC and achievements, and it's growing fast. The GameNative team is working like crazy to implement changes. The lead developer is very active in the community looking for feedback. And now it's to the point where the only way that I emulate PC games is with GameNative. Actually, these days, I play more PC games on my Android handhelds than I do on my computers. It's that good. And today I'm going to show it to you, give you a quick crash course on how to install it and set it up, give you all the tips and tricks you need to get your games running great, and tell you my secret to being so cool. As cool as I am all the time. It's root beer. That's the secret. I made a how to install GameNative in 2 minutes video recently, so rather than remake that content here now, I'll just cut to TechDweeb as he shows you how to do it. Take it away, TechDweeb. To do this, you're going to need an Android device. This works better if you have a Snapdragon device because of driver stuff, but other devices will probably work for lots of games. You won't know until you try. You'll also need the GameNative installer. Head over to GameNative.app and click download now to download the APK. Then when that's done, run the installer. You might get a message about installing apps from unknown sources and permission stuff. Just click the buttons that'll do the thing. When the install is done, open up GameNative. The first thing you'll need to do is log into your Steam account. You can do that with your login and password, however, I personally prefer to use the Steam Authenticator app. Now that we're in and ready to rock, let's install a game and test it out. Click the search and then type the name of a game. I'm going to go with Botvice. Then you'll see it come up in the search. You can tap on that and click install, and then click install again for some reason, and then you can boot it up. When you're in a game, you can bring up the in-game menu by swiping in from the left or using the back button on your device. And when you exit, it'll do the cloud save thing for you. And that's it. We're done. Yay! Thanks, past dweeb. Back to me, present dweeb. But before we get into the rest of this stuff, let's hear from future dweeb. Ah well, Valar Morghulis. So with the install done, let's do a little bit of a tour. There's a lot of stuff in here. When you're browsing your games, if you tap options or press the select button, you can change the way the games are shown. You got different sorting options, and you can show only the games that you have installed right now and change the view mode. You have a list and capsule, which is like box art, and hero, which is like the Steam tiles. When you're installing a game with DLC, when you go to install it, you'll get the option to pick which DLC you want to install. So that's good on retro handhelds if you want to be able to save space, not install all the DLC for whatever game you're playing. And you can always come back and install this stuff later if you need it. Back on the main screen, if you go to System or press Start, you'll get a bunch of options in here. Let's start at the bottom because this is where you can sign into other game stores like Epic Games or GOG or Amazon Games. Moving up, you can also use Steam in offline mode. So after you've started a game once, you can go to offline if you just want to play games when you're offline, obviously. This is also where you get into the settings, which brings us on to post setup tweaks. And there's a lot that you can tweak. In the settings, the first thing that I do is jump into the modified default config. There's a lot in here. This is like all the graphics and emulation settings of the app. And we'll get into some of this, but the main thing that I do right away on every device is check the screen size. Because depending on the device, I might want a different resolution or ratio. It's set to 1280 by 720 by default, which is good. However, if I'm playing on a device with a different screen ratio, like if I'm on my Ideal Pocket Ace that has a 3:2 ratio, I'll set this to something that makes more sense for that device. Also, if I'm playing on a more powerful device with a bigger screen, like my ODIN 2 Portal, maybe I'll set this to 1080p. However, there are benefits to sticking with 720p. The games will run better and you'll use less battery to render them. I usually only bump this up to 1080p on a per game basis. However, if I am sticking to 720p, then one setting that I like to enable by default is under the graphics section, this sharpness boost option. CAS sharpening makes 720p look a bit better. 3D games look a little bit upscaled, and for pixel art games, it gives them a nice pop. You can also change your icon style if you're into that, and increase the speed of your downloads. I always crank this right up, but if you have a device without great cooling, you might want to keep this around the middle so your device doesn't get too hot. You can also write to external storage. However, this isn't great because some games don't play nice with this, and they load slower, and also then you can't move that SD card between devices and bring your PC games with you. You'll still need to download them fresh. So this feature just, it's not really ready for prime time yet, but hopefully it will be someday. Maybe by the time you're watching this video, this will work fine. I don't know. You can also disable the ask for tip on startup. I'm a proud supporter of GameNative, so I don't need to be asked, so I turn this off. And you can ignore the rest of this stuff. You also have options on a per game basis. When you're on a game's page, you can tap the gear to bring up the options. In Edit Container, you can change all sorts of stuff about the game's graphics and whatnot. We'll get into that. And also in here, you can change the resolution on a per game basis. Like I'll bump this up to native 1080p for lots of super easy to run games where I want the best pixels into my eyeballs. You can browse and launch your games right from GameNative if you want to, but if you like to use a front end, this is where you can make use of the export for front end option. You can choose where to put the shortcut. So for example, I use ESDE for my front end, so I'll have to select my ROMs folder, and in there, I'm going to pick my Steam folder. That will make a shortcut for the game in there so that when I open up ESDE, I'll now see this game in my list. If you're going to scrape the art and metadata for the game, you should use the Games DB instead of Screen Scraper. That one's better for PC games. Screen Scraper is mostly just for retro games. You can also add your own game art, like I show you how to do in this video. You also get some in-game options. When you have a game running, you can swipe in from the left or press the back button on your doodad. You can bring up the performance HUD, which will show you some performance stuff about how the game is doing. You can exit the game here, but it's better to exit from within the game itself because then you'll make sure that the game has a chance to autosave or whatever. You also get some controller options, so you can bring up the keyboard if you need to type something, or turn on the on-screen controller if you want to touch the screen to do stuff. This edit physical controller is really cool. You can actually assign any mouse or keyboard function to any of the controls. So for games that don't have controller support, you can basically make your own. I did this for Splinter Cell Chaos Theory. I have this set up where the left stick is my WASD and the right stick is my mouse, and console-like buttons for all the different in-game commands. It was a bit of work to get this set up, but it was worth it. It works so good. And there's more settings we should get into, but it's all performance and compatibility stuff, so let's talk about getting your games working or running better. I find the vast majority of the things that I fire up just work great right away. No tinkering required. But I think it depends on the types of games that you play. I mostly play lower spec indie games, so that's probably why I have a better experience than someone trying to push it with more demanding 3D games. Either way, the troubleshooting steps are the same. First mostly, open up your games page, and then using the gear menu, you can select Use Known Config. This will set the settings to the best known compatibility settings for your chipset. Most of the time, this is all you need to do. If there's one troubleshooting step you try, make it this one. Use Known Config. It's the big one. The next thing to try is to open the container. This will open up the Windows environment for this game, and then you can launch your game manually, which for some games is what you need to do to get it to work. Usually you only need to do this once, and after that it'll launch the normal way. Your game is stored on the A drive, so go ahead and open that and then launch your game. And if it starts up there, you should be good to go to back out and to try to start it the normal way. And then it'll probably work after that. If your game still doesn't work or work well, this is where you'll need to tinker. Go to the games page and edit the container. There is so many options in here, but I'll try to give you the broad strokes of what I usually do in here. The first option is called Container Variant, and you got two options in here, glibc and Bionic. From what I understand, Bionic is sort of like it's running the commands natively on Android, and glibc is more of a translation thing. The short version is you could try glibc, but if that doesn't work, come back to Bionic, because that's sort of like the main one. That's where most of the options are too. And then you have the Wine version. Proton 9 for ARM64 is the default, and that's usually best in terms of performance. However, Proton 9 for x86 does better for compatibility. Proton 10 for ARM64 is better for newer games, but it's not quite as stable as Proton 9 from what I understand. Basically, you should try all three of these. So change one, and then back out and try your game, and then come back here and try a different one if it didn't work. You might also need to use this Launch Steam Client option, which actually launches the full desktop version of Steam. This is required for some games, like Skyrim, because it won't install the dependencies properly otherwise. This Steam type is the same kind of thing. Sometimes games work only if you're using Steam in light or ultralight mode. It's pretty rare that this affects anything, but it's worth trying if you're troubleshooting. Depending on the GPU that you have in your device, the next steps may be different. The creator of GameNative has a video where he explains each setting and which one you should use if you're on a Snapdragon chip with an Adreno GPU, or if you have a device with a Mali GPU. You can try other options. I'm not going to go over all the different configurations here, so I'll link to his video below. My rule of thumb is if I'm on a Snapdragon chip, I'll get in here and tinker, but if I'm on a Mali device, then I'll just try the game, and if it doesn't work, I'll try the known config, and if that doesn't work, I won't even bother tinkering, because it's likely that you just won't be able to get the game to work no matter what. There is stuff you can try though, so watch his video if you're desperate. Heading over to graphics, and in here, you can try changing the DirectX wrapper. DXVK is the default, but if you have a DirectX 12 game, you can use VKD3D. The rest of these shouldn't be used. You can also choose which version of DXVK or VKD3D you're using. Sometimes using an older or newer version works better. Also, and this is the big one, here is where you can choose which graphics driver you're using. If you're on a Snapdragon chip, you can go with the latest version of the Turnip driver or back to an older version of the driver. If you're on a Snapdragon Elite device, you can go with the latest Gen 8 version of Turnip or one of the older Elite drivers. If you're on a Mali device, none of this will be useful to you, so just stick with your system driver. Heading over to the emulation menu, and this will change depending on which Wine version you have selected. If you're on Proton 9 or 10 for ARM64, you'll be able to choose which FX Core version you're using. Sometimes newer or older versions will help you get your game working. You can also choose whether to use FX Core or Box 64 for older 32-bit games. The main thing you should be doing in here is changing these presets, either Box 64 or FX Core, depending on which emulator you choose. Each of these is self-explanatory, so go with stability if your game is crashing, compatibility if your game won't work or has problems, performance if you want the best performance, and Unity if it's a Unity game, and Denuvo if it's a Denuvo game. If you're on Proton 9 for x86, you'll just be using Box 64, which is the older but more compatible translation option. In here, you could try changing the Box 64 version. You might find success with that, but of course, the main thing that you should be trying in here is changing the Box 64 preset. Try the different modes depending on what your problem is. One more thing to try, under Advanced, you can actually disable CPU 7. Which can help some games get working or help with crashing. There are some complicated reasons why this is a thing, but I'm not going to get into that. Just try it because it might work. And you can basically ignore all the rest of this stuff in here. The wine settings and win components, you'll drive yourself nuts if you start tinkering in here, and very little of it will help. If anything, it'll just break stuff worse. However, if you've tried all my steps and your game still doesn't work, one last resort is you can head over to the GameNative Discord. There's like an army of uber nerds in there, including the developer of the app. You can do a search to see if your game has been discussed before, or your specific error or problem, or you can post a request to have someone help you. They helped me get a problem sorted in Dread Delusion. I couldn't get it working, but someone told me that the game actually does work. I just have to press start when I get to the black screen. And that did it. I never would have figured that out if someone didn't point it out to me. And that's it. That's all I really have to show you. A big old tour of GameNative, how to get it up and running, how to download and play your games, and how to tinker to get them working, or working better. I'm honestly baffled that PC emulation is this good. It's to the point where I just expect games to work. Maybe they won't be running as good as they can do on a PC or the Steam Deck or whatever, but these are cheaper, lower powered Android doodads we're dealing with here. The fact that I play more PC games on my ODIN Portal and my Thor and my Ainio Ace than my actual PC is basically my ultimate endorsement. And how lucky are we to have such cool dweebs who are making this a thing for us. And you make me proud to be a small part of it, making videos and sharing the glory of GameNative to anyone that'll listen, which is you, because you listened all the way to the end of the video, which means you get to hear me say, click the thumbs up button if you like the video, subscribe if you haven't, notifications, something YouTube stuff. I'm TechDweeb, thanks for watching, bye-bye.